Okay, we're live now. Okay, so now nothing starts until I click that button.
Okay.
But now that it's clicked, it's started.
Okay.
All right. Well, welcome to YouTube Live and to our podcast, FTF Health and Fitness. This is episode number 2 in season 2. So we are discussing today. I am actually sitting here with my daughter's boyfriend. This is Jacob Barrow. I got that right? It's not
Yes.
Jacob Barrow.
Barrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
So he's visiting out here along with my daughter and Jacob, my son, who is out here as well. He's actually out riding the quads right now. So we are sitting here today to talk a little bit about some questions that Jacob has as a newbie in the fitness realm. And he would like to learn some tricks from the old dog.
Definitely.
So, but before we get into that, what I wanted to do is kind of, Jacob, a little bit about your background with fitness, kind of what you've been doing. Kind of tell me a little bit about actually how you got involved in all this stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So in high school, I was an athlete. I played soccer and I played basketball. Soccer a little bit more than basketball. And so I was in good shape back then, definitely, but it wasn't something I really had to work for. It was good genetics. It was a very healthy lifestyle with soccer. So, I was in pretty good shape, and I go to college and I go through 4 years of what people do in college and lost a bit of that physique.
What do they do in college?
Study very hard, and it doesn't leave time for training. That's
Cheers.
That's all
do
we
they do any of this?
Quite a bit of that. So I lost the physique that I had going into college, and I wasn't able to really start it back up until about February is when I really started this. And I really started to look into fitness and specifically the nutrition. That was the main thing I got down because I enjoy going to the gym, but who enjoys eating right?
Yeah, correct. Yeah,
So,
no, I'm with you.
So
I'd rather have a Slater's 50 burger every day.
And I definitely would now. That was good stuff. Yeah, so I started in February. It started mostly as a fat loss thing. As I learned more, it started as weight loss until I learned the difference between weight loss and fat loss. But
so what did you? Let's go on that. What did you learn about weight loss versus fat loss?
So I understand that. I guess as a physics major, I get that the energy you take in compared to the energy you exert can lead to changes in energy, whether it's negative or positive. And so, if you just...
It's a law of thermodynamics.
It is.
According to physics, right?
Yes, it is.
Okay.
It's a law of thermodynamics. So, if calories in versus calories out is important. And if you have less calories than you burn, then you will lose weight. And
weight or mass?
You will, I don't know.
Okay, so while we're on this, it is actually mass.
You lose mass.
You lose mass.
Okay.
It may not necessarily be weight. We'll talk about that a little more as you ask your questions. But just know that the expenditure, if it's greater, you're going to lose mass. If it's less than, you're going to gain mass. The type of mass that you lose or gain is going to depend on
the nutrition, right?
Not necessarily the nutrition, but the activities that you're doing.
Okay.
So we'll get into that a little bit more, but anyway, go on, keep going.
And so that's kind of what I learned is everyone likes to use the example that you can eat pizza and you can lose weight. You can.
Yes.
You can eat pizza and you can lose weight.
Absolutely.
Because you just can't have much pizza.
Right. Yeah.
And so that's whenever I learned about prioritizing things like protein intake and professional bodybuilders might have high carb days, low carb days, but at the same time, I was a beginner and it was more about the protein.
Sure.
So once I started the fat loss journey, that's whenever I really started to see results. And so for me now, almost exactly, I guess it would be 4 months into it. Yeah, February. Yeah, so we're almost exactly here in 4 days. It'll be 4 months into it from whenever I first started to track everything, training, eating, that kind of stuff. And I am about 20 pounds down from when I started.
That's great. Congratulations. That's a huge accomplishment.
Thank you.
Now, did you at the beginning of this get a body composition completed?
No, I did not.
Okay. Because I'd be curious to see what your percentage of fat-free mass versus fat mass was lost.
So I wanted to figure that out, but I didn't exactly have. I don't even know where to go get that.
Okay.
And I heard that people do that, and so all I was doing was I started with a calorie estimation, and I started with a body fat estimation. But the body fat estimations that I was finding was you just look at a picture, compare it to yourself, and give yourself a general idea of what you think you might have body fat percentage wise. So I didn't really worry about that.
Okay.
What I worried about was the calorie estimation.
Sure.
And finagled that to where I realized if I was to make sure I was going for about a pound a week.
Okay.
And I didn't want to go. I definitely didn't want to go more than that. Or
so
else
you were
strength would be lost.
You were roughly in a 500 calorie deficit per day.
That's right. That's right about what I was going for.
Okay.
I believe it went up to about 450 is what I changed it to at first, and now it's. I mean, my calories have changed obviously.
Sure.
With a 20-pound difference, my calories have lowered since then, but not by much. I believe they've lowered by about 150 calories difference daily.
So realize that as your body composition changes, your calories do change. However, if you're adding fat-free mass at the same time as you're losing body fat or fat mass, your calorie requirement may actually go up.
Okay.
So there's some conundrums to this, and this is all stuff that we can get into later. But there's actually this thing called the exercise paradox.
Okay.
So you exercise, your body wants more calories, right? Mm-hmm. So you eat more calories. So what does your body do? Maintains the fat-free mass.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
So there's always this ongoing thing of if you're more active, your body wants more calories. So it's a continuum, like you're always chasing a number, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So calories, what I want you to start thinking about with calories is that the calorie estimator is probably a good thing. How did you estimate your calories?
You talking about like where
you got
online?
Okay, so a calorie estimator. Yeah. Okay, so Brian and I talked about, and unfortunately Brian is indisposed because he's preparing to move. So the last couple of weeks he's been pretty busy, but he would go into a lot more detail on this subject just because he's really sciencey like both of us. But definitely. He's even more sciencey than probably me. Okay. So in terms of his explanation. So but when you start thinking about these calorie estimators, 1 pound of fat burns between 3 and 7 calories per day. Mm-hmm. And 1 pound of muscle burns about 30 to 70 calories per day. So when you start looking at fat-free mass versus fat mass, then you can actually get a little bit more closer on your estimate.
Yeah.
But what we talked about in one of our podcasts was the thermic effective eating, thermic effective activity, and basal metabolic rate. And so one of these days you're gonna have to go back and listen to that one, and kind of listen to a little bit about each of those. And as an example, I know that my thermic effective activity, I'm in the high category. Mm-hmm. So my calorie estimation is probably between 2,500 and 3,000 calories a day is what I need. But that's because my activity level is super high. I'm working out right now on the hypertrophy, the FTF hypertrophy program.
Yes. And
I'm also doing the conditioning. And then because I just like and enjoy walking, I walk for an hour just because I enjoy it, and I watch my favorite shows and on the treadmill and kind of chill. So my activity is extremely high, and so as you start to kind of go down that path, those are things that you're going to have to adjust for. And especially in dropping 20 pounds of mass, we don't know whether it's fat or you may have to adjust that even more than you think. So that's good that you're thinking about that. That's a very positive thing. So, okay. So that's been your path, and you're now here. Currently Jacob is not following the FTF program, and just so you know, he's learning, and there may be a day where he follows it. But for now, we wanted him to ask some questions about some information that he wanted. So Jacob, is there more to your story?
There's I guess in terms of the story, there's chapters to be written, but that's actually something we'll get into here about, it's summer now. I graduated in the spring semester, but I wasn't actually taking classes in that semester. And that's why I've honestly had the time, the ability to think about nothing else other than this fitness journey I've been on. So
Perfect. That's awesome.
Yeah, we'll get into to the future here in a moment.
Perfect. All right. So what kind of questions you got?
So my first one, very hot topic, is your personal views on deadlifts.
So what do you mean by my personal views on deadlifts?
So the main one is it worth it? Do you think deadlifts are worth it?
Oh,
or worth the risk to the risk
to benefit?
Yeah, risk to benefit ratio.
So let's start talking about risk versus benefit, because this is actually something I cover when I do my seminars.
Okay.
Because there's high risk exercises, there's high benefit exercises, there's low risk exercises, and low benefit exercises.
Definitely.
Each exercise falls into, I would say, it's like a quadrant, right? So you've got high risk, high benefit. You've got low risk, high benefit. You've got low risk, low benefit, and you've got high risk, low benefit. Low risk, low benefit, high risk. I
get what you're saying. I get the mixture of them.
Yeah, so there's it's the ones we want to stay away from are the high risk, low benefit exercises that we always want to stay, or as much as we can, stay away from those.
Yeah.
So deadlift itself it depends on whether you're talking about sumo, conventional, whether you're talking about stiff leg, Romanian. I mean, there's so many different variations of the deadlift.
Definitely, yeah.
So I'm going to go with a conventional deadlift.
That's really the one I'm talking about the most.
So conventional deadlifting, I believe, has its place in programming, and not only hypertrophy programming, but strength programming, general programming, conditioning. I think it belongs in all programming.
Okay.
So one of our biggest movements in human beings is hip extension, right?
Yes.
Okay. So you would agree that when we stand up out of a chair,
yeah,
there's hip extension, knee extension, right?
Easily.
Okay. So when you're talking about the deadlift, you're talking about getting a lot of large muscle groups involved. You're talking about the hamstrings. You're talking about the hip extensors. You're talking about the glutes. You're talking about the spinal erectors. You're talking about a lot of the smaller intrinsic muscles of the back. You're talking about even quads can get involved in a deadlift depending upon your setup.
Yeah.
So my feeling on deadlifts is that it's one of the 4 major lifts that you should always do. So when I develop a strength program for somebody, there's 4 major lifts for a basic strength program, and then there are a total of 12 for an overall strength program. Okay, so your 4 major lifts are going to be bench press, overhead press, deadlift, and squat. When you start to look at those, they're going to get the primary movers throughout your entire body. And because they're compound joint movements, you're going to get a lot of those smaller muscle groups involved as well.
Yeah.
Okay. So we can go into the 12 later, but there's those additional 12 were something I picked up as I went along, and I kind of learned down the line that there's more to it than that. Yeah. You've got power, you've got speed, you've got agility, development, accuracy, all that stuff. But the deadlift itself is a highly beneficial movement to not only your hip extensors, but your back. But that's also where the risk comes in, right? Because I'm sure that's what you've heard is that,
yes,
oh, they're terrible in the lower back.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, they can be if you're set up poorly. So any exercise that your positioning or your movement pattern is poor is going to increase risk. But if you learn from the outset on how to move the bar correctly and keep it as close to your center of mass as possible, the risk lowers. So what happens a lot of times in deadlifts is, for those of you who are live right now, you'll get to see this. But when people sit up, they sit up with a rounded back like this, okay? And that's not going to be good, right? Because then what we're doing is we're putting all that stress on L4, L5.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, but if you're setting up your deadlift, and when I teach people the deadlift, what I do is I have them actually start at the hips, and I have them slide their thumbs down their body and push their booty back so that they are getting into that good deadlift position. So that what's happening is now your spine is completely straight. And one of the things I talk about with people too is neck alignment. So I told you this is going to be a half-hour talk.
I know, you warned me about the deadlift question.
So when you talk about a deadlift itself, so I'm sure you've heard or seen people that they teach people to look up when they deadlift, right? Okay, so our number one goal in safety in a lift is structural integrity. If my spine's not straight, hence neck up, what is that doing to the structural integrity of the back?
Nothing good.
Yeah, it's compromising it, right?
Exactly.
So what happens is that risk, it goes all the way down the spine, right? So you're
Mhm.
increasing risk. So when I set people up, I also make sure that they take their thumb and forefinger like this. They put it
Yeah.
on their chin. They put it 90 degrees. And what I teach people first is when you're starting is to keep it there. So I don't even have them grab a bar. I just have them basically come from here to here, and that's it. From here to here, which keeps their neck in a neutral position.
Mhm.
Once they learn that, then guess what I do?
What?
Go to a PVC bar.
Okay. Yeah,
Why do I go to a PVC next? Because positioning is everything, right?
definitely.
So when you start talking about the deadlift, is it dangerous? It can be. 100% it can be. Is it risky? It 100% can be. However, what is our most common thing that we do in life every single day?
Sit up and stand down.
And we
yeah.
pick things up off
Yeah,
the ground,
pick things up, yeah.
right? So inherently, why would the deadlift be? It can't be, because it is a natural human motion that we don't even know that we do when we go pick up a box. Now, are we doing the conventional when we pick up a box? Probably not. We're probably doing a sumo style deadlift, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Where our legs are wide and we're getting around the box and we're picking it up.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. But the conventional style deadlift is extremely important to do because it builds all the muscles around the hip joint, in the lower back, and the hamstrings, et cetera, et cetera.
Mhm.
Okay. So when you are talking about going at heavy loads, again, remember that fitness has this thing called the specific adaptation to imposed demand. It's called the SAID principle. Brian and I talk about it in one of our podcasts. But specific adaptation to imposed demand says you get good at what you do, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if I want to be good at getting out of a recliner, my job is to get in a recliner and get out of it, right?
Exactly.
But if I want to be good at picking heavy things up, what do?
You pick everything up.
Pick heavy things up in the safest way that you can. Now, if your form is compromised, drop the load. Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So anytime that you are doing an exercise and form is compromised or your movement pattern is poor, lower the load until your movement pattern is correct, and then train the movement pattern. So what you're doing is you're now adding to the benefit of the movement pattern. Here's Brianna. So when you talk about is deadlift good or bad, I think its benefits far outweigh the risks. But I think the risk comes into play when people actually don't set it up properly. They don't have somebody who's looking at them from the side and going, that's not right. So you need some visual. You need somebody from the outside looking at you going, hey, your back's not straight. Once you learn it and you start learning repetition after repetition after repetition, then you can go into and start adding load and doing that. Now, when you start talking about specific adaptation to imposed demand, you're talking different sets, different reps, different rest periods, different times between the times that you deadlift per week, in terms of what your goals are. So I'll deadlift once a week right now on leg day.
Yeah.
So I don't ignore legs, right?
I don't think you did.
Yeah, but most people who are doing hypertrophy programs, they typically hate leg day, right?
Yeah.
I hate leg day more now because I'm in hypertrophy. When I was doing strength training, I loved it.
Oh, and strength training, please.
Yeah.
Best day of the week.
Yeah, hypertrophy hurts.
Yeah.
But strength training wise, there was a point where my deadlift was at 485. I didn't use a weight belt. I didn't use straps. I didn't use any extraneous stuff to do my 485 pound deadlift. And that's not a very big deadlift compared to the people that are out there that are lifting over 5, over 6, over 700 pounds. But for me, who was just in it for just general fitness and I want to get strong, I was okay with it.
Oh, yeah.
At the time I only weighed 160 pounds. So I was cool with it. So that's the other thing that you want to think about too is what is your goal and how are you training it? Are you doing singles? Are you doing multiples? Are you doing touch and goes? So on and so forth. So there's a lot to it in terms of how it can be implemented into your program as well. Yeah. Is it a good hypertrophy training exercise? Absolutely. Where do I put it on hypertrophy training? It can be put on back day, or it can be put on leg day.
Okay.
So why would I put it on back day? Because it helps you strengthen all those muscles of your back so that you can stand up erect. It also works well with leg day because it's a glute and hamstring exercise, so you can actually get the benefit of the glutes and hams. Now, typically in a hypertrophy program, that sounds like a dirt bike.
That does sound like a dirt bike. That does.
Yeah, typically in a hypertrophy, what I'll do is I'll actually put stiff leg deadlifts in on leg day, and then I'll do deadlifts on back day.
Okay.
So, but I'm also not lifting a lot of weight on my deadlifts at this point because my goal is not strength; it's hypertrophy.
Mm-hmm.
So, because I'm looking for between 10 and 12 reps with a time under tension of about 30 to 60 seconds. So, you're looking at 3 to 5 second reps, which is that's a lot, and you have a lot of core engagement, a lot of stuff going on.
Definitely.
So, your weights are a lot lower than if I was just truly strength training.
Okay.
So, does that give you some idea?
It does, and I guess the real, not concern, but the real concern of mine is, and it almost leads me into, I guess, my next question. In reference to it, is you said that you can use it on leg or back day, and we know that it's a very good movement for either of those sets of muscles. So then, like for me, I started with a basic push-pull leg split.
Okay.
For myself, and so
you did push one day, pull the next day, and then legs.
Yes, and then
so push upper, push lower, or pull lower, or push upper, pull upper.
Yes,
and then legs,
and then legs. Yeah, legs get their own day. And with that, like let's say I decided to do it on leg day.
Okay.
Well, that would mean that I most likely did pull the day before.
Okay.
And so therefore my back muscles probably, even if they're not sore, they're definitely strained and under recovery at the moment.
Sure.
And so if I'm going to go out there and I'm going to put the entirety of my back into some, 300-pound lift, is that detrimental to those muscles then?
Probably not, because you're using them more as stabilizers. Your lower back is probably going to be a little bit more tired. Would I do 300 pounds? Probably not. I might thinking about it doing a push, a pull, a rest day, leg day, push day, rest day, pull, rest day. You might do if you're doing legs after a pull day. If you're doing heavy, but even that, I don't see it as detrimental. I see it as you just have to realize that you. We're doing your pulls the day before, and your back is going to be a little bit tired, so you're probably going to drop the weight.
Okay.
So, for instance, right now I'm only pulling 275 on deads. I'm not pulling heavy weight.
Okay.
So, but because my program is so varied, so our hypertrophy program, to give you an example.
Yeah.
So this week it's actually I can show it to you. It's right here. Right there. So here's the split this week. So you can see we've got some leg stuff, some shoulder stuff, some back stuff. You got some leg stuff. You got actually that's all legs. But there's the Romanian deadlift on back day.
Oh, see, that's interesting. I do Romanian deadlifts.
Yeah,
I do Romanian deadlifts, and I do them on leg day. So that's interesting.
Yeah. So and then here you go. You got your narrow stance squats. You got your lunges, your glute bridges, your squat jumps. So this is a push leg day, right? It's just pushing.
Yeah.
Okay. This is a pull leg day, or just a pull. And then later on in the week, I want you to choose 2 exercises from every day. But you can see the split. So you have all upper body, all lower body, kind of a combination, and then you rest. And so the hypertrophy program we have right now is set up on a 5-day-a-week split. The muscle groups that are need a little bit more get a little bit more attention. The muscle groups that need a little bit less get a little bit less attention. And that's kind of how we program it. But that's not how last week was. Actually, last week I think was the same because I programmed it the same this week. Yeah. 2 weeks ago. Look at how it's broken up here. Legs and shoulders. That's stiff leg deadlifts, right?
Yep.
No regular deadlifts this week. So no regular deadlifts whatsoever, just stiff leg deadlifts. So the variation in your programming, deadlifts can be put in there as often or as infrequent as you want.
Okay.
Should you do them? 100%. Should you do them every week? I think so. Let's go to the basic strength program. That's on here. Deadlift, right? So the people who are following the basic strength program are not doing the hypertrophy program. They're just simply following. But if you look at the next week, it's in there twice. It should be. Let's go back to this week. Should be in there twice for this one. There you go. Deadlift.
Oh wow. Okay.
So it's in there twice that week.
Yeah.
But that's because of the way that the split is. They're only doing strength work 3 days a week, and they're only doing 4 total lifts.
Okay.
So you can, there's so many ways to vary it. You can do a high volume day, you can do a low volume day, then you can do a medium volume day. You can just keep this thing progressing in any way that you want it to. And there's so many different principles to use in terms of programming that you can program in any way you want. By the way, this is all of the programming for 1 week. If you can kind of see that, there's a lot of different.
There's quite a bit going on there.
That's all in my head. Does that kind of help with that?
No, that definitely does. I mean,
so the answer is I don't think it's detrimental, but I think you have to be aware of your body and you have to listen to your body. 100% listen to your body. Mm-hmm. If you're feeling it and you're like, let's go for it. But if you're like me this morning, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. So then I kind of backed off on my training a little bit.
Okay.
So I didn't do any conditioning today because I was like, I just don't want to do conditioning today. So really, it's really important to listen to your body on that stuff.
Okay. Well, then on that note,
yes,
let's stick with what do you think? How sore is too sore to you? Because that is so. Again, let me phrase it better. So again, in high school,
yes,
soreness mattered absolutely none to me.
Okay.
And in high school, play soccer tournaments or whatever. You play multiple games in one day. You walk out the next day. You can't get out of the. You can't get up off the ground.
Sure,
you can't move anything, but you go out there and you do it, and that was fine. I was in great shape as a kid, right?
Yeah.
So I guess my difference here is whenever we're talking about trying to optimize. I guess that was for soccer. It was for endurance. It was my muscles weren't used 100% for strength, right?
Sure.
Now you're trying to optimize all different kinds of gains, strength gains. You want your muscles to grow. You want all this stuff. So that's where I come into it now. I've read studies about how lifting sore can lead to less optimal muscle growth, and that's a big concern of mine most of the time. Is how sore do I have to be to either cut down the intensity of the workout or just take a rest day?
So this is all going to be based on an individual basis, and I will tell you, as a now 47-year-old, as of last week, that recovery takes longer as you get older. Mm-hmm. In your 23?
I am 23 years old.
Okay. At 23, there's no such fucking thing as needing recovery. there isn't. I could have lifted every freaking day when I was 23 and probably been fine. As you get older, recovery becomes more important. Now, is that to say that I'm not saying not to recover?
No, I get it.
What I'm saying is that recovery becomes a greater need the older you get, mm-hmm. because there's the aging process is pretty hard on the body.
Yeah.
So I'm fighting all that right now, right? Definitely. So I wake up and I'm like, oh, I don't feel like good today, or whatever. About my back injury. I've had a back injury for the last 2 years, work-induced arthritic. So I constantly fight that, but I actually work out because it's arthritic, so it actually increases blood flow to my back. Things like deadlifts actually help it because they're increasing blood flow to my back, my hip extensors, everything else. So how sore is too sore? That's totally a personal thing. Is there a scientific study that says that if you're at this level of soreness, a 10 out of 10, I shouldn't work out? Well, no, maybe go for a walk instead.
Yeah.
But should I? And I want people to understand too that there is a difference between training and working out.
Yes.
Working out, it doesn't matter how fucking sore you are.
Oh yeah.
Just go work out. If that's your goal,
accelerate your heart rate, right?
Correct. Yeah. If that's your goal, just go work out. But if your goal is like strength, if your goal is hypertrophy, there's a little bit more to pay attention to than that. Mm-hmm. Strength. So according to NASM, this is going way back, to 92 when I took my NASM PT personal trainer certification. And actually, I just re-upped the certified It's not the certified personal trainer. I think it was a performance enhancement specialist. Anyway, so when you start talking about hypertrophy, your days of rest between, like let's say I do quads today, I shouldn't do them for between 3 and 5 days again.
Okay.
For strength, if you're lifting at high intensity, they're recommending between 5 and 7 days of rest.
Wow.
But that's if you're lifting at extremely high intensity.
Okay.
Right? Most people do not get to that point in their training to have to take 5 to 7 days off.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Let's say you go out and do 5 singles on a deadlift.
Okay.
And you are super sore. I don't think you would be, because it's a totally different type of soreness.
Yeah.
We'll talk a little bit about that too. But let's say that you're super sore.
Okay.
Day 1, you don't feel anything. Day 2, you got DOMS, delayed onset muscle soreness.
Yeah.
Day 3, you got, ouch, that kind of hurts a little bit. And then by day 4, you're fully recovered. Well, day 5, you go in and lift.
Yeah. Definitely.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, definitely.
So, and when you start talking about soreness is caused by what? What have you learned?
So that could be a whole other question, actually. From what I was told in high school. Wait, you mean like you're talking about biochemically, or
let's just talk. What do you know about where does soreness come from?
Is it my understanding is that it's a repercussion of the tears that you put in your muscle.
Correct. So people think it's lactic acid.
That's the one from bio in high school that I thought of. That I thought that's what it was until I read otherwise.
Right. So lactic acid is the temporary soreness that you get in the muscle from oxygen occlusion. Mm-hmm. Okay. So let's say that have you heard about band training? It's kind of one of the latest trends where people put bands around their arms and then they do biceps and get super sore, because they're occluding blood flow, which occludes oxygen, which builds up lactic acid. Lactic acid is what it causes damage in the muscle. Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's kind of one of the things that people are trying to research now is, do bands work, so on and so forth. Does blood flow occlusion work as a hypertrophy tool? Mm-hmm. I haven't read enough studies on it, so I can't give you an answer on whether it works or not.
I wasn't concerned about it. So.
But so lactic acid is a temporary, roughly 30 to 60 second energy system. If you've ever done cardio, where you go running and the first 2 to 5 minutes sucks, and then after 5 minutes you're like, oh, it's cool, I can go forever. Yeah. Right. That's your lactic acid system. So your lactic acid system. Right? It kind of. I mean, the runner's high goes way beyond that.
I thought it was, but I was just wondering. I do know what you're talking about.
So when I do the programming, especially for the endurance programming, there's this program that I use that's 5 minutes, 6 minutes, 7 minutes, and you run as far as you can in 5 minutes, and then you rest for 2 minutes. Then you run as far as you can in 6 minutes, and you rest for 2 minutes. Then you run as far as you can in 7 minutes. That's called the lactate shuttle training. Is what we're trying to do is we're trying to get our endurance athletes to get out of that lactic acid system sooner. So you train them between the times when that lactate system is operating, so that it becomes more efficient, right? Okay. Same thing with lactic acid. Lactic acid builds up, you stop working out, or you stop moving that muscle, you stop including blood flow to the muscle, blood flushes in, flushes all that stuff out. So lactic acid is not the cause for your soreness. Micro tears in the muscle fibers and inflammation in the muscle cell are actually what cause you to be sore. So here's the other side of that. Positive contractions do not create as much muscle damage as negative contractions, right? So we'll go to bench press now, right? Because that's a big one, right? You push up fast, and then you come down slow. Yeah. And then you push up fast, and then you come down slow.
Definitely.
Okay, so negative contractions typically are 150% stronger than your positive contraction. So if I can lift 100 pounds positively, I can control 150 pounds down. That is the theory.
Okay.
Now, again, hasn't been tested. This is all from my exercise science days, right? So the challenge with negative contractions is the way, and their negative contractions are always going to create more soreness because of the way that they actually move the muscle cell. So if you look at the muscle physiology, okay, we have these things that are called cross bridges. And when a muscle contracts, it has a receiver and it has something that locks into the receiver and it pulls it. And then it goes to the next one and pulls it and goes to the next one and it pulls it. Well, when we're doing a negative contraction, it snaps it it grabs onto the next one, it snaps it grabs on the next one, it snaps it goes on, so on and so forth. So your negative contraction, all it's trying to do is control the cross bridging in the opposite direction.
Mhm.
So what does that do? It creates more damage in the muscle cell, right? So if you're talking about size gains, hypertrophy, which is your goal right now.
Yeah.
In a hypertrophy program, negatives have a great benefit. In a strength program, they actually have great benefit too. That's why we do tempo and work and all that stuff. But tempo work actually works really well in hypertrophy programs. But what it does is it creates a greater interstitial space within the muscle cell, which volumizes the muscle cell, which allows more fluids in the muscle cell, but that also creates a greater soreness because now all those little nerve endings that are in your muscle cell that are going, hey, this isn't the normal size. We're a little bit bigger. So every time you move, you're like, oh, I'm moving a bigger space. Well, the bigger space allows for more protein synthesis, and that's what creates muscle growth.
Yes.
So,
okay.
How sore is too sore? I know that was a really scientific explanation.
No, I get it. I get it. You know, that's what I would do more anyways, and that's it's kind of turned into my.
Well, I'm sure our listeners are like, "Oh my God, Kevin!" They're like, "This is way too deep." But we are. I mean, we're getting into the weeds, but it's important to understand that concept, and for our listeners, it's important to understand the concept too, because typically in a conditioning work, you might be sore, but it's probably from the negative contraction because you're doing, like I'll use wall ball as an example. You're squatting down, you're throwing up a ball, you're controlling the ball on the way down, so you're getting a negative contraction as you come down, and you're getting your positive contraction as you come back up. So if you do 150 reps of wall balls, you're going to be fucking sore.
Oh yeah.
Why? Because you did 150 controlled, right, on the way down, as far as like just controlling the weight. So I'll use another example. Going uphill versus going downhill. Where do you get sore? It's not from the uphill. On the uphill, your legs burn.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, your legs burn. So on the downhill, I guess because you're stopping yourself.
You're stopping yourself. That's an eccentric contraction. You're stopping yourself.
It is,
so you get more sore from the downhill than you do from the actual uphill. And that's because we have this great thing called gravity, cold, heartless bitch, right? And it makes everything fall. So anyway, so the muscle soreness piece is again dependent upon your goal and how you feel. If you feel like it's, then go for it. If you feel like, holy shit, I can't move, maybe it's time for an active rest day. Maybe it's time to just kind of move a little bit. So does that make sense?
No, that does. That definitely makes sense.
We may have to pause for just a moment because the girls are coming back in. Let's see. I can't pause it. We can pause this though. Okay, we're going to pause for just a moment. Hi, girls.